Welcome in to the Energy Tech Podcast presented by Opsite Energy. Today we have special guest Paola Paz joining the show remotely, and we will discuss factory to the field, the next generation of industrial automation. Mike, Paola, welcome into the show.
Hey.
Hi.
Thanks for having us. This is going to be a good show. I am, again, your co-host, Mike Flores with the Energy Tech Podcast, live here in Cannonsburg, right in the heart of the Opsite Energy Control Room with our co-host, Paola Paz. Paola, thanks for joining us, and it's great to have you. This is going to be an exciting show. And one of the things I want to mention before we get started is, number one, Paola, you are the first female guest in the industry that has joined us on the Energy Tech Podcast. You're the inaugural first, and it's for us that's a great big deal, just because I think in the industry wide there aren't as many women. So I just want to welcome you to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
And you're coming in from San Antonio, Texas, right? Is that right?
That's right. Hi. Thank you for having me. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And Paola, thanks for joining us. And we're going to get in a little bit on what we're calling factory to the field, right? The next gen in industrial automation. But before we kind of deep dive into some things, Paula, tell us where you're coming from. We do know you're from San Antonio. Now Jeff and I are both Texas natives. I would say we're here in Cannonsburg. We love you, Pennsylvania, and the Marcellus, but San Antonio, for me at least, has a special place there. And so, I do want to say ahead of time, Paula, I've worked with you off and on probably in the last decade, I would say, in the industrial automation space. So what I want you to do is, just for our guest types, is just introduce yourself, give us your commercial, man, about what you do there with ADC, and then we'll take it back a little bit of how you got started.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for having me.
Yeah.
So I'm Paula. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I work for a company called Automated Dynamics. It's short for ADC. And we are a manufacturer's rep firm, and we bring value to the supply chain down here for 5 factories: Banner Engineering, Turck, Red Lion, HMS, and Pulse Power Supplies. So we do quite a bit on that ISA model on that bottom level.
Yeah.
And we help people. Basically, I feel like my role with ADC is helping solve problems and getting that IO layer of analog and discrete IO just up to a place where people can handshake and make decisions on data and providing that data for you. So I've been in the territory for well over a decade, I think. I've known you was thinking about that, over 10 years. That's
at least
pretty significant.
Yeah, so that's been over 10 years. Now, take it back a little bit, Paula, because nobody grows up and says, "Ooh, I want to be applications in the engineer and industrial automation," and then put people to sleep with I/O and tags and Modbus. Like, kind of where did you get started, Paula? Back it up here a little bit. You grew up in San Antonio for sure, and I will say you did grow up, and you actually grew up in San Antonio's west side. So, really great to hear that that's where you grew up. You've obviously you're an Aggie, right? So I want to put that out there.
Wait a minute.
Yes, she is.
All right.
Yeah, Paula's an Aggie.
Football season's right around the corner too, so some of the Aggies go into hiding. So it's good that you're representing. That's good.
So what got you to ADC first, Paula? Where were you before that? Kind of walk us through.
So I went to A&M, got my engineering degree. I took the really hard math. I don't think I needed to, but I did. And then my first job out of college was in a sales distribution company, and we sold all sorts of things within automation. So I stayed there for about 5 or 6 years, and a position opened up at ADC, which I really admire the guys there. They would always come in. They were the rep firm for a bunch of the products that we were distributors for, and they always had their stuff together, and they presented really well, and I just wanted to be a part of a good culture, good community. So that's kind of how I got started in there. I had a lot of great people, actually customers, who would take the time in my early years and kind of mentor me through a lot of applications, and just getting your hands dirty literally in the field. And just trying to find problems and solve them for people.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that. I think that for you personally, Paula, the ADC, and this includes you. I'm familiar with some of your coworkers. A shout out to Luis Sanchez there in the Valley. I know you're doing the same thing, working with Paula hand in hand. So if you catch the show, there's lots of folks. I know Drew Cunningham also handles some of the O&G markets out there. I've worked with him in East Texas. So ADC has some great folks. But I guess what I want to get to here is that when you started out, you were in sales, but then you moved into applications engineering, right? So when I think of an applications engineer, I don't think of someone that's putting a product in front of someone and hoping they buy it. I think more that you are the person that is the secret weapon of the company in terms of you connect the dots for someone, meaning you are willing to take a product and actually demonstrate it either in the field, in training, right? I mean, you're not just, hey, here's a product line and you're going to pitch it. It's more like, let me apply or let me take this product and show you how it's going to work in your line of business or on the plant floor or at the plant location, right?
Right, right. I think that people still like to have their hands on hardware and see how it's going to work. And a lot of the time, it's cutting edge technology. So you have to do your due diligence and teach people how to use things and walk them through the integration processes of using something new, trying something new.
Yeah, but part of that is like, Paula, so you're going to take the product and you're going to connect them. So I'll give you some examples because you guys represent in your line. It's not just a bunch of. You're not the typical person handing out a line card, right? This is more like whether that's manufacturing, water, wastewater, energy, right? Material handling, any one of those value chains. What you're actually doing is we'll take a product. A good example is recently Red Lion has joined the HMS family for products. So when I think of Red Lion, right off the bat, one of the typical products that always comes to mind are protocol converters. And then you've got an edge series of products that Red Lion offers. And then from there, you graduate into other products, or not graduate, but you typically have pulse products that go inside of power management. And then you've got a line for banner products that you'll find in a lot of your same value chains. But even those have some really great either edge or quick connect products that are out there. So kind of tell us what you're representing for ADC, right?
Yeah, Mike. So we participate in a lot of the supplementary units that go inside of a control automation panel, and we complement each other really well between the lines that we represent. So it makes it nice to be able to integrate a lot of those things together. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, you are. Yeah, no, you are. Yeah, you're basically saying.
So, Paula, you've got a car full of devices you're running around, right? Like, I know when I met you, it's 3 or 4 years ago, you had a whole briefcase full of stuff and an entourage, and you had a whole table full of stuff. And it's like, I think we were working on a project at a big plant, and it was like, hey, we needed some banner products. And it was like, hey, nice to meet you. But you were able to run us through how to connect those things, what the application is, and also show the latest and greatest, right? For all of these manufacturers.
Right. I get to be a part of, those product development as things are coming out, and we're part of the product development process. Sometimes we get to show that to customers and come up with new ideas on how to solve something that maybe we traditionally would do it one way. Now we have so many other ways that we could do it, and maybe even save some money, cut out costs, make it wireless or things like that.
Right. And earlier we were talking, so you are on the factory floor a lot and, industrial manufacturing plants, et cetera. But about 20-25% of your business is in oil and gas, outside getting dirty, right? Or a little bit dirtier probably. But what's your favorite part? Who are the favorite people for you? Is it the robotics folks at Tesla, or is it oil and gas? Just curious. No pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a lot of pressure. So I have a variety of industries that I serve. Automotive is a really big one in San Antonio. So I do a lot of work with robots and remote IO and connectorizing things. And the process automation is kind of different type of people as well. So I don't know. I find
I'm
both
just
of it.
kidding. I'm not putting you on the spot, but obviously we want you to say oil and gas is everything, but it's a
No,
small portion of your
energy.
portfolio. So, it's really good to have you on the show again. But um,
Yeah, I would say, Paula, back to what I call the secret weapon. I mean, I don't want you to downplay what you do just because I've been with you to the factory floor. Like, you're the hands-on person. So your phone also rings off the hook. Like, I'm not trying to add more calls to you. I just know for a fact that when you
Hard to
go to
get
the
hold
yeah, so when you go to the plant floor, I don't want you to downplay what you're doing here because you go to we'll name them. You've been to Toyota. You hit the tier one automotive suppliers. You work with manufacturers. You touch folks that are out there. Whether that's Navistar, Caterpillar, oil and gas, energy, the Toyota plants, tons of plants that are kind of running in the background that a lot of folks don't know about, right? And I guess what I'm going to ask you is, you obviously, do you see yourself as that kind of person? Like, hey, I go in and I kind of connect the dots for somebody, showing them how this product actually gets installed on the plant floor?
I am. I do connect the dots for a lot of these workers out in the field that aren't exposed to the technology and even IT limitation, right? You can't even download sometimes hardware to company laptops, and you have to just, walk them through a lot of things. So, yeah, we definitely um, try to make it as easy as possible. I'll bring my own hardware, my own cables. We'll plug it in the conference room, go take it out into the factory floor, test it. Sometimes I'm there for hours, doing something, and then other days it runs smoothly. But you just hit a lot of walls sometimes with existing legacy things and old
Yeah,
obsolete softwares, old laptops, just so many things that you face in the field, right?
right. Yeah, you do. So, having said that, tell me, like right now, tell me about some of the challenges you're seeing. I'll give you an example. I think one of the challenges you're probably seeing is what you just said, which is legacy equipment. Legacy equipment in manufacturing, energy, it doesn't matter where you are, it exists. Like, do you kind of see that as one of the biggest things is legacy and then having customers move to newer, maybe edge equipment?
Yeah, it's funny. I see that book on behind your head about AI, and so many people want to talk about AI and do AI in the factory and bring that next industrial revolution, but we're not even like at industry 4.0 yet. We have protocols, right, that are proprietary that we can't even get into. One of them is like FIPWay, right,
Yes.
with Schneider and Modicon. Like, I can't figure out a way to talk to her right now. So, um, without just tearing apart the whole thing, just starting over.
Yeah, so you're right. Yeah, so sometimes you have legacy protocols that prevent you from actually kind of diving in and getting stuff connected. Um, so back to the challenge. What do you think? What do you think that is? Is it coming from the manufacturer? Is it coming from the folks that run the facility? Are you seeing a maybe a generational piece associated with
Man,
that?
it's yeah, definitely. There's I would say generational, but I think it's really also mindsets. Just controls engineers. The good old saying, "Don't fix it if it ain't broke, don't fix it." That mindset, I come across it all the time, right? And then you have other controls engineers, probably the younger folks that are more open to even just public open source type protocols, right?
Yeah.
And
this is a
and
common
so yeah, there's
theme on the
definitely a
show.
difference.
We,
What?
we talk about this a lot on the show. Maybe my wife thinks I talk about these things way too much, but I'm like, hey, you're not in the workforce hitting, these walls of I call them age walls. I guess Mike is always talking about pay wall, but sometimes age walls is there. Like, so you're
Sure.
saying the younger engineers are looking to upgrade systems. They're fine working around the issues of the legacy, but maybe the other generations are, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
because it does
Right.
work. But I'm assuming when they call you, it's they really want to optimize or make something better or something safer or something quicker, right?
Right. Right. There's, I can't tell you how many times I open up a control panel and there's like obsolete things. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, this has literally been obsolete for 10 years. It's time to get something new, and not wait for it to be broken to fix it, because then you're going to be out for a long time. Stuff isn't even available. You might find things on eBay, but, that idea of waiting for something to break before you fix it and are proactive. I meet a lot of controls engineers also that are constantly chasing fires. And instead of, making space and time for doing predictive maintenance or preventative maintenance and learning something new, even, or making time to see your sales rep
So,
Right.
with
so, so,
new
so,
things.
so why do you think that
Yeah.
is? I don't know anyone who walks around with a 10-year-old phone in their pocket. I don't know any IT department at an established organization that allows a 10-year-old laptop into the system. But
Yeah.
the most critical part of their operation, the plant floor, the gas plant, those places, like, what is the holdup with upgrading technology there? I mean, obviously budgets is always a problem, but the IT guy in the other department doesn't seem to have any problem giving people new laptops every 5 years. Security, they can run up whatever they need to up the chain to make the excuse for that budget. But the most critical assets these people own, the ones that are the cash register, so to speak, are the ones with the oldest, older technologies. Maybe they got the older protocols, like Mike is mentioning, like. Why do you think that is? And you can just hypothesize, but I'm like, why do those critical pieces of the operation not get as much attention when it comes to upgrading?
The same reason I haven't gotten Google Fiber.
Oh, cost. Just it's easy. It works. It works. Like to me, it's.
Yeah.
We run into the same things, and I got my own hypothesis on why that may be, but technically the guys in the field aren't screaming bloody murder. Hey, we need new things all the time.
Yeah,
because
Paula.
sometimes it's hard to adopt new things.
It is, and so from Paula, from our perspective, we're touching energy customers. This is the value chain of drilling, completions, flowback, production, and in your world, there is you're touching folks that are in another vertical that might be like automotive, supply chain, material handling, and other avenues. But now it seems that your team and its equipment is diving into energy and data center. I think that is on the climb for ADC and your team. But like as Jeff is saying, do you have a different perspective than we do? And maybe we get accused of talking about this on the show, but I do believe there's a direct connection between legacy equipment, don't fix, no reason to fix it, and the person running the facility is in a different generational group versus we want to try some new edge things, and you have another group that's competing with that.
Right. And, I think also we are in an age where information is super hyper available now. It's easier to see what's out there, just get information on solutions even. So yeah, I still work with, that older generation where they want, brochures, they want, Google, and then you have the newer generations who are open to even AI or open to asking questions about predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance probably too is one of those topics that unless a motor like blows up, they're not going to fix it. I've even been to facilities where I literally feel unsafe walking through the facility.
Right.
I'm like, should I have my eyeglasses on or
Yeah.
just super unsafe. And I remember one in particular, and I believe we actually told them that they needed to, safeguard their stamping presses. And sure enough, like there was an accident not long after that. So, and like fatal accident.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our mindsets really can cause accidents and really can, yeah.
So keep it on the subject of just you. All right. On I used the word secret weapon earlier. I think what a lot of folks don't know. Let me back up 1 second. Two things. Number one is you're at ADC. ADC's got a line of products, and we're not, on the show. We don't want to turn this into a commercial, but at the end of the day, there are some lines that are some of the keys. I mentioned one of them, which was the HMS, Red Lion products that we're all very familiar with, whether you're in energy, oil and gas, or you're in manufacturing, is very common for protocol converters. Some of the edge products that come out of Red Lion switches and other products. But you have a couple of other lines that I think have made their way not just from those segments, but also that are now going to find their way into data center and energy. So talk about that for a second. Two of them I'm targeting is mostly Banner and your Pulse products that you carry.
Yeah, we are starting to see some data centers adopting, for example, the Banner Engineering Snap Signal family. I don't have one with me, but maybe you can link it in the description for the video. But it's these little inline converters and they're connectorized. So one of the common problems is getting an analog signal directly over to Modbus. So converting those signals, doing condition monitoring of temperatures, humidity,
Right.
dew point, all sorts of, pressure flow, all of that, and getting it up quickly, right, to the cloud or an edge device or even a gateway that can convert the protocols quickly. That's something that we're seeing. I'm also seeing the same engineers who work in process are also the ones pioneering in data centers and getting them built up and spec'd out and all of that. So that's one area. Tons of connectivity as well that's being used in data centers as far as cables, heavy duty cables with cold bend radius that can handle those long runs, power supplies that are capable of giving you more information and more control
Right.
over how you limit the current and getting you information about how much or even decentralizing your power runs and
Right.
electronic fuses on them and just all sorts of advanced things. So it's pretty cool the kind of stuff that's going in there.
Yeah. So I think one of the things it sounds like you're verifying what I'm seeing in terms of the data center, and that is the need to measure that power off the PDU, pick up power, and like you said, temperatures that happen in both heating and cooling halls for the data center. And at the same time, a lot of this, because there's certain federal and state mandates that are coming out for power consumption and for optimizing heating and cooling for data centers, there seems to be a big pickup in these product types that they want to use, or they want to get their hands on this because this is data that needs to be looked at in real time, not just something. It needs to be a little bit more granular, is what I'm getting at. And I think you're only verifying what is typically you're seeing both in the energy space and data center that's now translated over to the lines that you even offer, and
Right. I think you mentioned the data logging too, being able to do that. It's so easy now with products, those edge devices like the Red Lion, for example.
yeah, and you bring a good point, but the other part to this is that you personally, your team, you guys do lots of what I call field support and training and integration guidance. Like usually, sometimes when you have I call it a factory rep. Usually, what'll happen is they're going to come in with a line card. They're going to hand it to me, right? Because I've worked for integrators, and they come in, they give you a line card, and it's okay. Hey, thanks a lot, Joe Blow, with the 50 pumps that you have in a booklet. I appreciate it. I didn't get anywhere with that. However, the difference is that whether I'm with you here, there in San Antonio, Seguin, and that surrounding area, or I'm with Luis in the Valley, or Drew in East Texas, what's going to typically happen is that you're going to come on site and we're going to do an install. So we're not going to wait around for a brochure. where you're going to bring a product with you, and we're going to install this thing, and we're going to get that proof of concept going if we have what we need, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're there. We're there with you. We're like a partner.
Yeah.
We were always told don't show up ever without some hardware. Don't. What are you doing?
No, you're right. Yeah, so you definitely
No?
want to come on site. So I think that's the differentiator is what I'm getting at here. It's not just your team giving us like we can go to the internet and I can look at HMS all day long, but what I can't do is go plug in a DA50 unless I have it in my hands and we say, hey, let's get this converted. I have a legacy device, or I have a connection type that I'm using an old Modbus. I want to convert that and then get that MQTT, and I want to have it in Snowflake, right? And
Right.
I think that's what I'm getting at here is that there's a difference there, and I think that's one of the things that is a differentiator when I think about you or Luis and so on at ADC.
Yeah, we host trainings all the time. All the reps are always doing some sort of lunch and learn presentation or just on all sorts of topics. Some of them are training up your maintenance people on sensors, just sensors 101 classes, letting them know, hey, this is how you wire it up through wire two. I mean, basic stuff.
Right.
People appreciate, understanding the physics, I guess, of photoelectrics and red line classes. And I mean, that's a big investment. An HMI is committing to a software platform. And so we're going to try to earn your trust. I think that's really what it's about. And the way that we have found most effective and have been able to stay around is because we build trust with customers and training them up, training their teams up, and just trying to be the best value source for them.
Yeah, good point.
So Paula, we're going to switch gears here a little bit, but another thing we talk about, other than age gaps, is IT versus OT, right? And I think a common theme that I see on LinkedIn all the time, and just that gets spoken about a lot, is how do you bridge the gap between IT and OT? So I think Mike's got some questions to kind of open that up on, some of the modern protocols, and cyber is always a big piece, and that's probably the biggest discussion you have between the OT and the IT group. But the protocols you're talking about and Mike have been talking about are not part of the IT ecosystem, right? So, but everything's connected now. Everyone's I would think a lot of people's plans these days is to connect all the way to the ERP with factory data, plant data, whatever it may be. But there's always an issue there, right? Between how do we grab data from what's happening in this legacy operation that's always kind of been done this way on its own little pedestal or island. And now the push for many of these manufacturers, I'm assuming if they're same as oil and gas, is to bring that data into the business, right? So, maybe Mike, dive into some of those questions around protocols and bridging that gap, and what are you seeing there, and if there's any successes there or failures, curious to get your perspective.
Well, a couple of things here. So number one is, after working with, let's say Paola working with you directly. So Paola lives in that space. When you go look at an ISA model, Paula's living in that 0 to 1 category down at the edge, where you're collecting data. So if and Paula, you can jump in at any time on this, but when you're there, your goal is, hey, I want to give you something that I can unbox, we can connect, collect, store, and get data to the business, but we're going to do it at the sensor level, the PLC, at that 0 and 1 level, and then we're going to move up that model, whether that's the an older model, or we start talking about even the UNS, a unified namespace. At the end of the day, that's where you're operating in, right? You're touching that space with sensors and devices. And Paula, you're doing this, but on the other end of the spectrum, I was in an operations meeting just today, and you have folks talking about a different language, because I'm going to say that technologists in IT do not speak operation. I'm going to say it again. Technologists and IT do not speak operations. That is one of the gaps. It's not just the title or the protocols. It is the mindset of a technologist at that business level who cannot translate that, or from the business marrying that part of the business into operations. And the biggest thing I see, my perspective is this: people or folks in operations, they don't look at their solution, their problem, and work backwards. You said it earlier. That's the cash register. That's the meter making the money. That's the device stamping out parts. That is the product delivering an item. That is the machine extruding the material. That is at the edge. You must work your way backwards and start speaking operations. IT it hasn't done that traditionally, and I think that is the biggest gap right there. And that is my perspective, if you're asking, Jeff. And I would say that, Paola, you've been on the floor. I mean, this is kind of painfully obvious when you look at that from that perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a touchy subject, because most of the time I'm on the IO side. I'm down there, and if I can get, for me, I get success out of something if I can make things talk,
Right.
whether it be to their PLC or up to their cloud or whatever. But there are instances where I do have to get on their network, or they want to provide, with Redline, for example, you have a web server, and maybe they want to get the web server available to the maintenance guy who gets alerts or whatever. So that's outside of their local network. And so that's always a touchy subject. And so more often than not, I mean, we have to find workarounds, or they don't want to even open up a ticket with IT. I mean, it's just a scary conversation for a lot of engineers. I mean, there's some real fear with just even all of that. And but I will tell you that I guess maybe some of the larger companies where I've seen more collaboration is going to be the bigger companies that have a little bit more bridging. So I hosted a Red Lion Networks 101 class, just because this is tough for a lot of controls engineers to talk the same language. I mean, the majority of probably the engineers that I deal with, VLANs, routing, all of that is foreign. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to set up those kind of network settings that, they usually deal with IT to do for them, where we're trying to give them an understanding and the ability through some of our devices to do that themselves and give them a little bit more power. And I think there's more adoption coming. I think it's even just having this conversation, I think people are becoming more aware, and I am seeing progress. So I do see some more trends going in the right direction.
I think you're right. I think there's lots of convergence, Paula, because if you don't, your business dies. And I think that is the it doesn't matter if you're in a digital transformation initiative, or you go pay $500,000, $500,000 to Deloitte or one of these groups to give you a fancy PowerPoint. At the end of the day, if you're not doing this and you're not determining that I need to take my edge data from the field at the plant floor, I need to take that up to my business, and they need to see it in real time. If you're not doing that, your business is going to die. I mean, that's essentially what's going to happen. And I think we're seeing the convergence of the two. We like to say it pretty. Oh, it's converging. Well, no, it's more that they have to see this. This needs to make its way up, not just to the business, but it's got to make its way to operations. And sometimes it has to make its way to a third party that's outside of the network. And so that is the convergence. There's a sort of a mandate now. And then with the introduction of AI that we haven't even touched, Jeff, okay, so we haven't even touched the mandate of AI or the solutions that are possible. I think that you're right, Paula, that there's lots of movement that's happening right now, and the talking has to be the same. And I just want to plug in here that when you reference Redline, we have to remember these products have MQTT built in with Sparkplug. So now we can take that simple protocol, we can send that in a small packet size, 80% smaller than your typical TCP, take that packet, and it's already wrapped up in at TCP. So that means we've got native protection. We can outbound port only and send that data out and get it up to the business without any two-way talking. And then without even that DMZ that's typical of the old school modeling, we can take that data and we can give that over to the business, and we can secure that and then create a way that in the cloud that data is available without punching the OT network. And I think that gets lost in a lot of folks out there that have an interest in either IT or OT. So Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess kind of getting on that same thing is the newer types of protocols, like Mike is mentioning, like the assumption from someone like me who's, not as big a nerd as Mike, I guess, but is these newer protocols help bridge that gap from OT to IT, and you kind of explained why, right? So there's new technology also to secure those things more easily, things like Tossi box, et cetera, like that are plug and play, so to speak, and that, if you can set up a router at home, you should be able to set up this thing really quickly on the floor. But how do you see these new protocols playing into the revolution of AI? Like, are there ones that are better for that, better or worse? Like, is that something your customers talk about with you, Paula? Like, is it top of mind, or is it something you're bringing to their attention?
I am the one asking.
Okay.
I am the one asking, hey, are you using ChatGPT? No, our company doesn't allow us to put it on our laptops or whatever. So there, at least in the factory world, there's still not, I'm not having those conversations.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what will happen when these people like my daughter's age graduate college here in a couple of years, and they get into the workforce and they say you can't have ChatGPT. I was reading this. Here's the ChatGPT user base, and you could see over the summer it went down like 80%. And it was like, here it is during the school year, summertime. Now we're back in the late August, and everything's going to ramp back up. But that generation of kids coming through there, they're used to using that the same way we're used to using Edge as a browser or Google as a browse, a search engine. That's their new search engine, right? Because it's way quicker. It gives you, it searches everything, not just a subset of data. So.
Well, I think, Jeff, that you don't have to wait for your daughter to graduate college or be in her third year before you're going to see this, because right now, you have to remember, we can take a large language model and put it inside of our network. It doesn't have to live in the internet. And I think that's the misnomer here. Mm-hmm. So you can take that large language model and it can live inside of the network of our customer, whatever that customer is. The other thing is that there's newer ways to approach this. If we wanted to look at PLC data that's sitting at that layer 0, we want to look at those layer 0, 1, we want to look at those devices. It is possible for us to leverage things like Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and use contextualized language, just natural language, to glean what we want from a PLC or a device, and then push that up to operations or the business. And you still have your cyber component without saying, oh, I have to reach out to the internet every time. So I think that is the one thing. There's some misnomers that happen, and when we realize that and we take hold of that, it's easy if I'm a cyber guy, right? So, I've got a little bit of background there. I think I would say that there's the potential to lean on that and use that as a reason not to have or stifle innovation. And the last remark I'm going to say about this is that if you're in IT, you need to be an enabler and a service to the company, not the stifler of security.
Well, if that's not your core business, we've always said that. Why is this guy even in the room? Let's figure out what we want to do, and then he needs to figure out how to work around that, right? But Paula, we sent you a kit to get on. I think the camera looks good. So anyone else out there, I want to mention, we have a kit we can send around. We're going to be bringing in probably a lot more remote guests. I would love to have you back on the show and just kind of showing us some of the newest products, that you're pushing, even if it's on the manufacturing floor. Like these are interesting things. Like I've seen you've had a trailer and all these things set up, but hopefully you'll be able to join us back again. We really do appreciate you coming on today. I know we shorted up a little bit. We had a little technical difficulty, so appreciate you sticking with us, Mike. Any final words?
No, I mean, again, Paula, we want to have you back on the show. We're going to have a couple of links for ADC on some of the product lines. Ring Paula's phone. No, it's just don't do that. But
put your phone number there. Yeah.
No. This is a great resource, that team, for sure. We're going to have you on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us, and we want to hear your comments. Don't be afraid to put those comments. If you're a cyber guy, IT/OT, put those comments in there.
Tell us we suck. Yeah, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, bring it on. So again, I'm your co-host Mike Flores with the Energy Tech Podcast. Paula, thank you so much. You're going to be back.
Thank you for having me.